and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have MaryJo McCloskey. MaryJo is a head coach of the women's golf team at George Fox University. She and her team would go on to win the 2023 NCAA Division III National Championship. MaryJo is also the author of When Girls Win. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome MaryJo McCloskey.
Oh my gosh, Courtney, thanks for having me. It's super fun to be here. I'm so excited to finally get to chat with you.
I am thrilled to have you on the podcast, MaryJo. From the very moment that you and I met, going back and forth through email, I have to let even the listeners know and the audience members know, if in fact you email me with exclamation points in any kind of party hat, you're automatically my friend.
I use too many exclamation points. Thank goodness for an editor for my book, because else it was going to be filled.
I love, but it really does. It brings the energy, and I am all about energy, which we're going to jump right into this podcast. And I want to start off with that whole idea of where that high energy, that uplifting nature came from, MaryJo.
You can call me MJ, by the way. Yeah.
Perfect. MJ.
Okay. Actually, thinking about that, I would say my mom and dad, and they both, really instilled in me that attitude is everything and that we can control our attitude, but there's other things we can't control. And so I think they just taught me like, okay, that's okay that you didn't get an A on that test, but you get an A on the next one, or just always going for the next goal and going for the next thing, and just keeping that positive attitude all the time. And that good things happen when you have high energy.
No, I love that. And I feel like, to your very point, having a positive outlook on life, even when those difficult times do come, it really makes a difference. Because I always think about, and we're certainly going to talk all about sports, leadership, coaching, but in sports in particular, as you well know, those workouts could be long. Those practices could be long. And if in fact you take that from that whole workout, and then especially as a student athlete, you were to take that into maybe your classes, and it makes the day so much longer. So to always just kind of fall back on that positive note, like, hey, maybe my day didn't start off the way that I wanted it to, but I'm going to switch it, and it is going to be a positive day the rest of the day. So I love that you mentioned that, and like just the impact that your parents had too on you. So I first want to begin with, you had the opportunity to start the George Fox University's women's golf team from the very beginning, from ground up. So I want to begin with what that journey was truly like for you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's interesting to think back on that, because that actually started back in 2006. So I'm going into my 19th year at George Fox, which is hard to believe. I never really totally envisioned that, but I did envision building a championship program. So I will tell you, visualization works. But it was really exciting. I have had an amazing amount of support. I get a lot of credit, but really I've had so much support. And without that support, we couldn't get this done. And so it does take a village with, accomplishing anything like a championship. But just exciting. In the very beginning, we were going to wait a year before we started the program. And then I convinced our AD to just, let's go. And so I was able, because we started a little late in the recruiting process. So I recruited 2 players, but I needed 2 more to make a team. We needed at least 4 to have a team. So we actually had these 2 basketball players from our championship women's basketball team at George Fox that jumped in and said, hey, we'll play. And they weren't the best golfers. They were amazing basketball players. But what they brought for me was just this real champion mindset, and helped us establish this foundation from the very beginning. And it was really fun, but they were really serious. They said, you know what, we're probably not going to be on the team that wins the national championship, but someday you're going to thank us for what we're helping you with. And they did. They brought that great leadership skills, great discipline, great just determination and hard work to help sort of build it from the start. And those are just huge foundational culture
Mhm.
and the culture that you have to get there.
Speaking of culture, I was just thinking as you were talking about those two young women to start a program, especially being a multi athlete as far as different sports. I
Yeah.
can't, I mean, seriously, especially at the collegiate level to play two completely different sports. That's incredible. And that speaks volumes about them putting themselves out there to go on another team and
Right.
to develop, like you said, they kind of laid that foundation for even the culture, that uplifting, positive energy. Could you maybe speak to the culture that you have developed over the years on this team?
Yeah, definitely. Well, just backing up, I think the
Yeah.
biggest one that I just mentioned was discipline, because I think
Mhm.
motivation takes you so far, but then it's discipline after that. Like you have to
Mhm.
get up on those mornings when you maybe don't want to go, to the course and hit balls at 6:37 in the morning, and you do it because you're disciplined and you know that that consistency and that little bit that you do every day is going to help you get there. So I would say discipline is a huge part of our culture. And then I would say hard work for sure. Like, we live at a time where I feel like, oh, I want to be an influencer overnight and have 1 million followers. Oh, like the microwave generation, I want it now. That whole thing. And I feel like that's not you. The work, you have to put in the work. So our team knows that, and we put in the work. And right now it's super exciting for me because it's still pretty cold here. We've been having nice weather, but it's pretty cold. And our indoor center is just maxed out. Like everyone's signing up for time and they're putting in the work because they know that this time when no one's watching is going to pay off. So anyway, so that's a big part of us. And then I think the overall
Mhm.
element that's really made us and helped us become successful has been gratitude and gratefulness, and we use that as our strength. And we don't just say it, we do really believe it. And I really do believe my our players believe that um that they're giving they've been given this great opportunity to play for a
Mhm.
college team, to travel, to push themselves, to see how great they can become, and they feel really grateful about it. And I just think gratefulness is huge. So yeah.
Most certainly. And the key words that really came out of that discipline, hard work, and gratefulness. And I am all about discipline, hard work, and gratefulness.
I'm
I mean,
sure.
especially, well, and just to your very point with the discipline and hard work, you are so right. I mean, in a society where we're all about instant gratification, like you just started business, you want it to be successful the next day. Just
Yeah,
and it's like, no, it's going to take time. And what you mentioned, I think so incredibly important when people are not watching. That is the
exactly.
time that you're developing, that you're able to get ahead. And yes, you're not going to have the applaud, for instance, at a tournament and stuff that you would have. But when you're grinding behind the scenes, putting in that work, putting in that effort, that is when one day it is going to come all together. And which leads us to, of course, that 2023 NCAA national championship that you won, MJ, with your team. A big congratulations
Thank
on that.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And,
Thanks.
you know, that's something I would love to just, if you could walk us through that journey of when you were there at the national championship and how you made it happen.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think that I won't tell you all our secrets today, but I'll tell you the key secret going in. I think really this was the key. I really do. I told the team before we left that we were going to have to let go of being perfect. And, you know, a lot of athletes, most are perfectionist type A's, and they want to do everything really, really well. And of course, we wanted to go and be really successful, but you don't do it being perfect. And so I said, mistakes are going to happen. And it was something that always got in my way when I was younger, because I was a perfectionist, and I feel that it always was getting in my way, and I would make a mistake on the golf course, and then I would panic, and then I wouldn't recover. And so you can't do that in life, and you can't do that on the golf course. You have to figure out a way to just get through it. So we really let go of perfection, and we focused more on our process and being persistent, and just one shot at a time. And we didn't get ahead of ourselves, and we just tried to really live in the moment, and play that way. And then we did have some controversy at the national championship that year, which you probably read about in my book. But there was an illegal hole placement on one of the holes, the sixth hole, where if you never put a pin in a place where you hit a ball, and if it doesn't go in the hole, it can roll all the way off the green and then down the hill. It was on such a slope. It was crazy. It was kind of all over social media because it was blowing up that who put this pin in this location. But we still played, and we had to play through it. And I was telling everyone, come on, we just have to let it go. Like, we played that hole too. And some of our players didn't play well on that hole, but we just pushed through. And one of our players had 4 birdies on the back 9, and another one had moved from 10th to heading into first place. And then there were thunderstorms, so some of the players in the afternoon didn't finish. And typically in the middle of a championship like that, they would have gone out early the next morning and finished, and then they start the tournament there then. And instead, the NCAA, because of that hole placement, decided to just wipe out the whole round and go back to the second round. Yeah, it was crazy. And I found out about it on my computer at 8 p.m. and the scores were just gone and erased. And we were going back to the second round. And I was so mad to begin with, because I just thought, this isn't fair. And there were other teams that had rallied above the cut line, and now they were cut, because it was like that round didn't matter. None of that mattered. Those other 17 holes didn't matter. And so I went up to tell my team, and it was one of those moments, Courtney, where it felt like it was reverse roles. They were my teacher, because I knocked on the door and I said, you guys, and they said, we know. And I said, oh my gosh. And they go, it's fine. We've got this. And I was so excited, because I knew in that moment that all the mental toughness training that we had done had really paid off. And they said, we're going to go get it tomorrow. We've got this. And so it was really, really cool. And we did. And the next day we just stayed in the moment and just kept with the plan. It was really simple. We weren't doing anything fancy, and we got it done. So yeah.
That is unbelievable. And the one thing that, to your very point, I mean, I think it speaks volumes about you, though, as a coach in preparation for those athletes, that mental toughness, that no matter what, if something comes in the way, if a challenge, obviously in this case, would come up, that you're still going to make it through. You're going to grind through. You're going to push through as a team. But speaking of mental toughness, you have mental toughness tips throughout your book. And I love it, because it really does. It provides, it comes like all together within those chapters. And where exactly did you come up with those mental toughness tips? Was it just over a period of time throughout your coaching, or certain points within your coaching?
Yeah, it was throughout my coaching. And that is really what and it was mental toughness that really made me think about writing the book about it, because it's the buzzword now, right? Like, you turn on any sporting event and they talk about mental toughness, or mental toughness this, mental toughness. And I thought, I keep hearing these words mainly from men and not as much from women. And I also was thinking, I'm not hearing it from women that are in the arena. And so I thought, here I am, someone experiencing this, and have, really learned all these lessons along the way in my coaching journey. I thought, I need to document this. So I thought, in telling the stories from the arena, that would be different from your basic sports psychology book. So in fact, my chapters were in the beginning, really more sports psychology book like, emotional resilience and just stronger in that direction. And then it was really my editor. Kudos to my fabulous editor. Shout out to her,
Oh,
Claudia Johnson.
oh.
She was so great. And she came up with the idea. I had one chapter that was named after a song. And then we decided to do all the chapters after songs because music plays such an important role in mental toughness and in our journey. And so we did all the chapters after songs because I'm not claiming to be a sports psychologist, but I have learned mental toughness sort of the hard way.
That's
So
so true. Music really does like uplift you. I'm telling you, I am all about music.
me
If I
too.
am getting ready for something or if it's a presentation or something, I don't know. I dance around in the living room. I even wrote a blog on this. I'm like, please tell me that everyone has done this before. Either that or I'm going crazy, but that's a whole other story. But I
Yeah.
wanted to at least read one of the mental toughness
Oh,
tips.
okay.
And if you could just elaborate on it, because I love this one. Writing positive affirmations and or journaling about your successes and intentions will help invigorate your brain, just like lifting weights strengthens your body.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a lot of athletes at the Olympics that talked about affirmations and saying that it was the affirmations that got them there, and it does. In
Mhm.
fact, I just heard this quote. I love this quote by Michael Jordan, and he said, "Spending time in the mind gym is just as important as spending time in the physical gym." And so basically, I was saying that same thing that having those affirmations and writing those down, you're really training your brain to and your subconscious to be thinking those things, and it's being ingrained in there instead of maybe like when I was younger, I heard a lot of times that I was good, but I also heard you're not the best putter. And so that was in
Yeah.
my subconscious. So even though I worked a lot on putting, if I made a mistake, then it would come back. Like if I missed a putt, it would come back like, oh, that's right. I'm not that great of a putter. Instead, if I had an affirmation saying, you are a good putter, your hard work is going to pay off, which I had a player do. She wasn't the best putter. She wrote this affirmation and honestly, she read it over and over and over and over. And you know what? Her first time in the lineup, she won the tournament. It was amazing. And I can vouch for affirmations all day long as being so powerful. It's Michael Phelps, I think, that said every time he walked under a doorway, he would
Mhm.
say something positive to himself or an affirmation. And he said, at the end of the day, think about how many doorways you walk under. Um,
So true.
think how positive you're going to feel at the end of the day, because we say so many, we have a 75% negative bias. So it's easy to start going down that negative. And it's like, I do it and I catch myself. And then my husband will say, you're a mental toughness person. You can't do that. But we do, we go down that way. And so, anyway, yeah, affirmations are powerful tools.
Two things, Mary Jo.
Absolutely.
I had to laugh at the end because my husband says the same thing with plenty of positivity. Of course, as you would only know, I have bad days too. And he's like, "Hold on, I'm sorry. What's the title of your business? Oh, plenty of positivity. That's right."
I love that.
It's so funny, but I really am. I am all about journaling. I have certainly spoke about this, and it really is incredible. There have been several things, like larger things that I have written about, and over time, either in some form, it has come to fruition. Or it has literally come to fruition. And I don't know what it is about the visualization, about really focusing in on what you want. And I always say this, I'm a morning girl. And so I wake up early when it's very quiet. And
Hmm.
I could just hear my thoughts before, we've spoken about this too, like before distractions, noise, everything starts coming in where you can't focus as well. And so I am all about positive affirmations and journaling. So
Journaling.
I loved that mental toughness tip. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I have to bring this up.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, I didn't mention journaling there. I will say I read this story. What really got me into journaling was reading about this PGA pro. His name is Mark Wilson. And Bob Rotella talks about him in one of his books. And he said that he started journaling because he didn't realize the negativity that he was like, he was dwelling on the things that he wasn't doing well instead of the things that he was doing right. And so he started journaling it. And then when he would go back and read it, he would just be like, but wait, look at all these things I'm doing right. And he won back to back PGA tournaments back in, I don't know, early 2000s or something, but back to back tournaments, which doesn't happen very often. And it was all, he attributed it to reading all the good that he was doing instead of dwelling on the mistakes he was making. So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's
Well,
powerful.
I really do think it's power. Like I have seen it legitimately for myself. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, you have the winning formula for a national
Well,
championship winning team.
thank
Um,
you.
I would just love to take a step back. And when you are in recruitment and you are obviously recruiting young women, what are some specific characteristics that you look for, maybe other than talent?
Right. Well, that's really easy, Courtney.
Mhm.
Good question. Because I've had the opportunity to work with a great coach. That's the former Arizona State coach, Linda Volstad. She's a
Mhm.
six-time national champion. And I asked her that question a while back, probably 10 years ago. And it's energy. It's positive energy. And if you have two players and one of them is a little bit better than this one, but this one brings the positive energy and the passion, you go with this one. And so I've just stuck with that. And I think it's really true because that positive energy and that passion, it's going to drive you further. It's going to bring the discipline. It's going to bring, the gratefulness it's going to bring. And if someone is just kind of going through the motions, but is good, that maybe isn't going to be enough. So I just look at energy. I look how they carry themselves on the golf course, their body language, just
Mhm.
all of that. That's just so important.
No,
So recruits out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. I mean, with the energy and the passion, there's so many times, even just in life, not even just in sport. But I could certainly say I was never at the top. I was never the best. I was never this or that. But the one thing is bringing the things we spoke about too before that you can control is your attitude, your effort, that energy that you bring, because especially when you're on a team, I feel like it could really affect, like, that's my next question is building like team chemistry. Did you all do any type of team bonding, team building at the beginning to lay that foundation to have a really strong chemistry and strong culture with the team at the very beginning of the seasons?
Actually, that's interesting. Another coach just asked me that the other day, and I was thinking, I feel like we're at a place now. We don't do like a retreat or
Sure.
anything that like
Mhm.
that, but I think we just do some ongoing bonding things that are really fun. So like at Christmas time, well, one thing we did at Christmas, which was the main thing, was we get together and we put together these food boxes for some of the needy children in the
Mhm.
community. And that's just like, it feels so good to give back and do things like that. So we do that as a team. But for a fun thing right before finals, I mean, and that's fun too, giving back, but it's more
Right.
special.
Sure.
But for like a really fun thing, we we did this thing where I bought these fake snowballs and I put it on Instagram. It's pretty funny. And we had two teams and it was kind of like dodgeball in our indoor center. And it was just really, really funny. And everyone was into it, just taking out that energy that they had going into finals. And
Sure.
then we also did a pinata that had like candy in it and stuff. And they were blindfolded and they used a golf club to try to knock the pinata down. But this one girl was just whacking at it. And anyway, just things like that keep
Sure.
it fun, keep it, so I try to do things throughout the year, little things to make it fun. I think keeping things fun is really important. Yes, we're really competitive, but keeping
Sure.
it fun is really, really important to the whole team aspect. Yeah.
No, that's incredible. And something else that I was thinking that we kind of have in common as far as golf and gymnastics
Yeah.
is a lot of the times the sport begins as an individualistic sport. And
Right.
then once you, of course, get to the collegiate level, it becomes all about the team. And that could certainly be an adjustment for a student athlete. And so, how do you help coach those student athletes, especially those freshmen when they're coming in to adapt to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I should have mentioned that when I do recruit, I do
Yeah.
look for people that have like sort of that team framework already. Maybe they're playing
Mhm.
as an individual, but they're definitely into their team. So that is another important attribute that I look for. But I think we've developed such a team atmosphere now that the recruit knows before they step on campus that they're playing for the team and that it's all about
Mhm.
team when they get there. So I think it just has this natural flow, and there's nothing extra special that I do. They just come in and they know that I'm just going to emphasize team, and then individual awards and things come out of that, like All Americans. I think we have something like 26 All Americans to date. But, so that opportunity's there, but that's not our emphasis. Our emphasis is all on the team. So they get that from the beginning and they understand that.
No, that is fantastic. And it's funny because this conversation, like I said, it kind of intertwines between the book, but
I,
I want to hold up the book.
oh,
Here's
thank you.
the book. And
Thank you.
I want to thank Mary Jo for sending me a t-shirt when girls win. Yay.
That's so cute that you wore it. Thank
Yay.
you.
I'm so grateful. And I love that it's pink. That's one of my favorite colors. So no, I'm all about it. And, speaking about the book, there was one particular quote when we talk about that competitive mindset, that competitive edge, that I would love for you just to elaborate on. So,
Okay.
your competitive advantage is your winning mindset and positive energy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was thinking about that as far as the whole winning mindset and what is that. And I think I think back on myself, and probably you do too. The hardest competitor is someone that's really positive and is just letting go and going with the flow, and just you're just saying, "Why aren't you getting mad? You just hit it in the trees," or in gymnastics, like you just fell or whatever, and you're just like, you should be getting upset, but then you see them just get right back on. And so same within golf. Like, I used to play against this player. She really taught me a lot about the winning mindset, because she would hit it in the trees, punch out of the trees, and somehow make a birdie or par just when I thought she was out of it. And I would think, and that was when I didn't know as much about mental toughness. And I would think about, I've just, got to the green in two. I did everything right. And she's walking away like with a birdie, for example, and I'm walking away with a par or a bogey. And just really taught me that energy does, I don't want to say you just get lucky. And I said to her one day, I said, you are so lucky, like, I can't believe it. You can hit it in the creek and it'll pop up on the green. And she said, MJ, I'm not lucky. I just believe in joy, playing with joy. That's what she said. And that really knocked my socks off, because I said, wow, that is how I need to play. And she really, really, she really did teach me that playing with joy in your heart and just really playing for the love of your sport is the most important thing you can do. And that's the winning mindset. And so that's what I try to bring out with my team, because it's not going to go perfect. You're going to make mistakes. But if you start going down that rabbit hole of negativity, it's just going to get worse. You're just going to keep. So you have to figure out a way to get back to, that you do love the game, and just get yourself back into it. And it's not always easy. It's so easy. It's easier to talk about, but when you're in the heat of the moment and you've just made a mistake and you feel terrible, but when you get back into it and you're able to overcome it, it's like the best feeling ever. And it's
So
so great. Yeah. So I hope that helps on that one.
No, absolutely. And I think I do. I feel that there's something about, like, I think about even when I used to compete, and if in fact I did make a mistake in the meet, you think like the whole world's ending. But at the same time, I'll never forget my coach. And like, I don't remember the exact quote she said to me or to us, even as a team, but something along the lines like, a true champion rises after they fall, like for the team.
Yeah.
Like, it's that idea of, you can't just focus on what already happened in the past, but that you have a job to do. Maybe you have the next event you're still competing on for the team, and that you have to be able to erase it completely and focus on that next event for the team. And I think that's what, it's such a powerful lesson, because I do feel like in life, you cannot worry about the past. You cannot worry about what's obviously already been done, but to focus on the present and then where you're obviously headed. And
Right.
so, I see so many overlaps, I feel like, in sport and then life, not to mention career too.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah. The magic moment, honestly, mental toughness, this is my definition, is
sure.
really just preparing yourself for the magic moment. And
Yeah.
so preparing yourself for when that moment comes, can I get through it and do it and
Mhm.
not allow all this interference to come in? And so can I get through that interference, through that resistance? And even with my writing the book, I mean, I'd never written a book before. I was like, I definitely had times where like, I don't think I can get through this. But then I remembered, this is just a huge philosophy of mine that I read about. It actually, I think it applies to writing, but I think it applies to sports too. And that is, resistance is at its greatest right before breakthrough. And I always tell my players that, because resistance, they start feeling the resistance and they want to give up. And I said, you are so close to breaking through. Just push a little harder, And then when you break through it, like let's say you're just learning a new shot and you're like, I can't learn this shot. I just can't. I'm not getting it. I don't, whatever. And it's like, just go a little bit further, because you're closer than you think. And then when you do get over that, and get to the other side, you're like, oh my gosh, you feel so good that you stayed in it.
That
So
is so true. And, I think about even when you talk about resistance, it was my last semester of my PhD program. And it was you know what it was? It was the expectation. I don't know why, but I thought it was going to be like just smooth coasting as far as that last semester. No, it was anything but to your point, there was times where you're like, there's just no way. Like, how am I going to be able to finish this at this deadline? Like, talk about deadlines when you're finishing that. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You either finish or you don't.
or you don't, right?
Yes. And so you're right. But that resistance, I think it trains you to mentally to think about why you started in the first place,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah, for
And
sure.
it helps you to get those wheels kind of going again, to say, no, I only have one more month or whatever it is,
Right.
or in, of course, like career. But, something that you had mentioned, and I want to kind of elaborate on it, because I do feel a lot of student athletes in general, especially high level, high performing athletes, they fall into this idea of perfectionism. And I could certainly attest to it. I've certainly had many things both in career and in sport, but where sometimes you focus on it so much that it actually hinders you in a way. It takes away time to keep moving those wheels forward. So, could you maybe just elaborate on the concept of perfectionism?
Yes, definitely. I think perfectionism is great on one hand because it pushes us, but like I mentioned earlier, it can definitely sabotage you and prevent
Mm.
like the excellence from coming out. And so I think instead focusing more on your process goals and your persistence is much more important. And so I mean, I've definitely deal with perfectionists all the time, and I'm a perfectionist too. So it's really just about letting that go and understanding that mistakes do happen, and you have to be able, like you said earlier, you have to be able to let go
Yeah.
and and then move on and get to the next moment and be in that moment. So, I mean, even Rory McIlroy, when he won the US Open, he said you could hear his caddy in the background saying, stay with your process, stay with your process. No, it was when he won the British Open, actually. And he was saying, stay with the process. And I was jumping out of my chair because I was like, yes, I've read about this, but you're doing it. And it was like he was trying not to get ahead of himself. And he was trying not to be like, I have to do this perfect. He was just do my process, because you can get so hung up on perfection. There's some perfectionists that are so talented, but they don't get to that next step because they basically get in their way of trying to do it perfectly. And yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to win this championship at George Fox. And I think some of it was because I was fearful, like, I have to be perfect. We have to do this in a perfect way. And then once I let go of it, it was like, no, I'm not going to always say the right thing to the player at the right time. I'm going to make some mistakes, but you just have to be aware of that. And I think, you know what, I went to this class that Bob Rotella, the sports psychologist, he's a big guru in golf, gave, and he said self-awareness is so powerful. So just being really self-aware of your traits and understanding, like, oh no, I'm really in that perfectionist mode right now, and being able to let that go, that's super powerful right there.
No, I think that's a powerful message. And speaking of powerful, my gosh, MaryJo, you and your team, not only that national championship, but you have won 8 NCAA trophies in the last 11 seasons.
Yeah, pretty
So
proud.
that is unbelievable. And it speaks volumes because I also remember reading the book that when you first started this program, you were kind of told, hey, you're going to be up against challenges here, the weather, there's really good teams. How did you overcome what you were hearing, what people were telling you, overcoming those challenges? How did you use that to actually propel you forward?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to make sure like it's clear that I wasn't hearing that from my school. My school was like, go for it. You
Right.
can do this. But there were other coaches. We were actually the last conference to add golf in as a sport in our conference. There's 9 schools in our conference in Oregon and Washington. And so it was some of the other coaches when I started asking about, what does it take to win a national championship? What do you have to do? And they're like, what are you asking about? And I would say, why can't we do it? And so I think, I was surprised that in the beginning that no one really, believed that it was possible, mainly because of our weather in the Pacific Northwest, where we do have a lot of rain. And we know we're up against schools that are in Southern California and in Texas, which were the schools in our region. So they were just like, you can't really compete with those teams. And I thought, why not? And so I'm a really big believer that there's a ways around things, and you just have to be creative and innovative. And so one of the things I did right away was just start figuring out a way to rally money and get donations for an indoor center. And I believe we were the first school in our conference to get an indoor center, because if we can practice indoors, that right there, that's going to solve a big part of it. Right. And then just other things too, like, I could tell that it's really important, like look good, play good, philosophy. So we did some fun things with uniforms, and people started noticing, like, our colors were navy and gold, but we started using like Nike's highlighter yellow, and it was just this bright yellow, and people were like, who is this team? But I try to just do creative things, and even drills at practice, like more creativity, bring, just read a lot, understand what the best are doing, and then focus on that. So I've just done a lot of reading of what the best are doing. I have I talk about it in my books. I'm all about mentors. I have a lot of mentors in the industry, people I look up to. And you look at what the best are doing, and then you figure out, like, how can we do this? So yeah, so that's kind of what it took.
No, that's absolutely incredible. Like I said, just the accomplishments that you have been able to produce. Like I said, a national championship, that is every like collegiate athlete and collegiate coach dream to have that come true. So a
Thank you.
huge congratulations to you
Thanks.
on
But I
that.
want to make sure, like, you talk a lot about me, but it's a village. It truly is. So many mentors in my life, so many great people at George Fox, our administration, our board of trustees. They come to the national championship. Some of them, they cheer us on, they support us. Some of our alums, in fact, Peggy and Bob Fowler helped make a big donation for our indoor center. It was huge. Those are the people that are like a big part of our foundation and the reason we're able to be successful. So it's not just about me. I just sort of like gear the ship, but there's all these other people around that have really helped us be successful. And I will tell you one more thing, Courtney.
Yeah.
It's not just about winning the national championship. I mean, it's cool to win the national championship, super proud of it. But I have to tell you, I'm really excited that I've started a second book because of
Yeah.
what happened at last year's national championship, which we didn't win, but we set an NCAA team scoring record in the final round, and we moved from ninth to fourth, and we shot one under par as a team, and it gives me chills. It was every bit as exciting as winning the national championship. I mean, of course we went back to try to repeat, and we knew after the first two rounds that we hadn't quite gotten it done, and what are we going to do? But seeing the team rally, and they just said, team, we're still going after this, and they didn't give up. And I think that my new book is going to be more about, sometimes it's just about showing up, not giving up, and seeing what you can do. And so it was every bit as exciting. The magic started happening in the final round, and the birdies were flying, and I could feel the magic. And that is the ultimate for a coach, to just see your team like arrive at that place where it's so cool, and they broke through the resistance, and they had been so defeated after the first two rounds. And so, but in the end, it was fabulous. It was a great story. So that's leading me to do the second book. I can't believe it.
That is incredible. And
Thank you.
it reminds me when you talk about like kind of removing that winning element to things, is those student athletes enter your program and they are there for those 4 years. What is something that you really hope that they're able to walk away with, or in fact, that you ensure that they walk away with?
Well, you can never ensure anything, but I hope they walk away with amazing memories of the really
Mhm.
fun times. And because I do try to incorporate a lot of fun things in,
Sure.
and provide great memories for them. We've had amazing experiences playing Pebble Beach, and just going to really fun places like the Jelly Bean Factory down in California. Just little things that I put on the schedule to make it fun. So I hope they take those memories with them. But more than anything, I hope that they've found the tools that can help them in life, and
Yeah.
that can help them be great people, and can help them maneuver through challenges that are going to come their way, and get through them, and say, wow, I can apply these tools I learned on the golf team to life, and really become like super successful and kind people, which they are, but just do
Sure.
really great things for the world and give back as well.
No, that's fantastic. Because I mean, there's so many times when I still reminisce. Gratefully, I had such a fantastic time on my team at the University of Florida, and I want to thank Rhonda Fain. I always like to thank her. But truthfully, you learn so many lessons during those collegiate years that you could still take with you many years after. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's so true, and how valuable collegiate sports really is for young women, for young men. But Mary Jo,
Oh, you're
MJ,
so sweet.
I always love rounding out with a positive quote or a positive phrase, if you could provide that for the community.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Actually, I wrote this down because I think this is, pretty much kind of, it sums up my book a little bit too. And that is, your mindset is your superpower. And to never forget that, because it isn't about being unbreakable. It's about learning to be unstoppable. And it's about learning to be ready for those magic moments that are out there for you. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you so
Of
much,
course.
MJ. And I'm so grateful that you came on the podcast, sharing all your wisdom, all your knowledge
Thank you.
within not even only the realm of sport, but leadership and coaching. And once again, MJ, your positive, uplifting nature just resonates. Like I'll never forget getting that first email, and I was like, yes. I was like, I just know I'm going to be friends with her. Like I love it. I love that positive
Well, I love
energy.
everything you're doing because you're bringing it, man.
You.
I love your podcast. I love what you're doing. You're just really, if everyone was doing what you were doing, Courtney, we would all be at peace and enjoy and living in joy,
Oh,
So thank you
thank
for
you.
spreading so much joy and just bringing it every time.
Well, MaryJo, thank you so
Of
much. And it
course.
truly was a pleasure having you on the Plenty of Positivity podcast.
Of course. Thank you.